I do a lot of Apple podcasts. I drive a lot and I travel a lot, so I'm always listening to podcasts at
Yeah.
airports and doing like little driving across the state of Missouri. But I like podcasts a lot, and I find like ADD where like I have to have some like I always have music playing, or if
Right.
I'm like doing the dishes, I have to turn on a podcast. Like I just need something to I need some stimulus. And thanks everybody for rejoining. Sorry, my signal. I guess it looked like on my end that Lawrence was frozen, but nope, it was very much me. But thanks for jumping back in. Um, let's see. I was curious. I had a couple questions too, more about. I saw that you do Banner and Backbone. You want to talk about what that's about? You got some interesting merch that you sell. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so Banner and Backbone is something that I started with Frederick Pogue and Nick Perro, and Melissa Corrigan is also a part of it, and it's grown. The thing is, I have kind of been my attention has been kind of pulled away to Daily Whatever Show and to Blue Ant Media. But Nick and Melissa and Shane Urick and some other folks have been running with Banner and Backbone. And the idea behind Banner and Backbone was that we need voices on the left that are talking about reclaiming patriotism, right? Like
Oh
reclaiming
yeah,
the
I love
flag
that. Yeah,
and, kind of uh, you know, being able to be proud of America, like seeing
yeah.
America for everything, for all that it is not,
That's
for
something I
full
really
history.
hate about like some liberals, where they just hate America. It's like they act
Right,
like we're a colonial hellscape. That like there's never been a country more cruel and like awful than us. Even though really, when you like check the scoreboard on like world history, especially as far as like hegemonic, world powers go, like superpowers, like I feel like our record's like way better than the average, empire or civilization.
right, yeah. There's the old Churchill quote, right, that democracy is the worst form of government except for all of the
Yeah,
others that
right.
have been tried. And I kind of feel that way maybe about America, right? Like, is it a colonialist imperial power that has a sordid past that exploited people and enslaved people and built on blood and plunder? Sure. But when you look at it in the scheme of things, is it the worst that has ever existed? No.
Not at
And
all. Yeah, right.
has America at least tried to do good things in the world,
Yeah.
to do good while also doing well? And I think the answer to that question is yes. And so, you know, do I believe that it is a place that, could be made more perfect? Absolutely. And I think the thing that frustrates me most as somebody existing in this current moment in time is like the idea that we have to give up on it entirely and that we can't fix what is broken. And obviously there's a fuck ton that is broken right now.
Right.
But we can do it. We just need to like screw our courage to the sticking place and actually get it done. Like we're pretending like we've never had a revolutionary war before, right? Or I don't want things to come to bloodshed. I very much advocate against a civil war and things like that. But we do have the ability. There are 340 million of us, and I don't believe that the majority of that 340 million are assholes, right? Like some of them have become Nazis for some fucking inexplicable reason, but not all of them. It's not
Yeah.
even half. I don't even think
Involuntary
it's
celibacy, maybe.
yeah, seriously. Like the dudes who have not been able to get laid,
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
involuntarily celibate,
Yeah.
have turned to Nazism, and
And they're
fuck those
losers at work,
guys.
and like women are getting raises and promotions instead of them, and they can't handle it.
Right, right.
Um,
Like, oh gosh, who knew that true equality meant that some dudes are going to be compared against the full spectrum of everybody that's out there and discover that they are in fact mediocre. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
right. Sucks to suck. Kind of going with that. I guess we can go and I have a little bit of a political recap. I'm curious to get to some of your reactions to the news.
Sure.
But in terms of like the incel thing and like Donald Trump's kind of MAGA movement, would you say you're bullish or bearish on that, given that his approval ratings now in like the mid 30s, he's kind of floundering. Like anecdotally, I don't see any Trump hats really anymore. I don't see Trump flags out and about. You
Yeah.
don't see the MAGA, guys in trucks with the two MAGA flags on the back of their pickup bed or anything like that. What do you think going forward in 2026 will be Trump's will his approval rating keep going down? Is there at some point where it levels off and it's just like, in 2008, after like 8 years of George W. Bush being president and like amidst all those disasters of like Katrina, Iraq, the economic meltdown, like there was still like 1 in 10 voters that like didn't have an opinion on him. And he still had like somewhere in the mid 30s or something approval
Right.
rating, 30, somewhere in there.
Yeah, isn't it tragic that I look at that back at the time period now, and I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to have George W. Bush and Dick
Oh
Cheney
yeah,
in office?
yeah, or even Dick Cheney. Like what I would give for Dick Cheney to be president instead of
Seriously,
Trump.
right, right.
It's not
Honestly,
great, but it's a step in the right direction.
yeah, for sure. At least I legit believe that he believed in the Constitution, right, and that there
Yeah,
were things that he wouldn't
right.
do. I think those two things are a little bit separate now. I think that Trump is, I think, in a decline, and I think in 2026 we are going to see um, a pretty precipitous decline in him and his approval ratings. But I think that
And
MAGA,
hopefully his health,
right,
right,
his health,
medical health.
his mental well being, everything, his continued existence on this earth, yes, all of it. But I think that MAGA and like the sort of chewy Nazi core at the center of the MAGA lollipop, I think that is real. And I think that beast is going to grow. And even if we hit a moment where we feel like we're making some progress against, Nazism and fascism in this country, it's like it's the Voldemort, right? Like it's the big bad in the movie that it's going to look like we're winning, and then there's going to be this big push, and like it's going to be an epic battle for the ages. I legit don't know how we win that issue. I mean, like literally everybody needs to be more active politically than they've ever been in their lives, even if you're tired, even if you're exhausted and you don't want to. Like you got to go to your local Democratic meeting.
Yeah, right.
If you legit believe in a different party, then go organize it, right? Like I think you'd be wasting your effort. Not that I'm a huge proponent of the Democratic Party, but when you think about where we could move the ball down the field most easily, it is in the Democratic Party. And if you hate the way the Democratic Party operates, then if enough of us go participate, we can literally change the rules, guys. That's literally how your local party operates. You start voting on things at the local level, and if you hate the way that it's being run, you run for your local Democratic Party chair or communications member or whatever, and you vote to make the rules different in your local party, and then the local party votes for the county party and the state party and the national party. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the way we got to do it. And our only other option is that we literally all become advocates of fierce advocates of the Second Amendment, and we have some kind of bloody civil war, which would, I think, go really badly for everybody involved.
Yeah. Do you think a civil war? I get the impression that Americans are just too cushy and too lazy. And like, right off the bat, it's like 40% of the country is not really active in politics and they don't vote. And
Yeah,
they, probably couldn't tell you like one Supreme Court justice or, they couldn't name the Speaker of the House at the moment. And so like, I know like conservatives, they, those militia groups, they get the idea of like the 3%. You need 3% of people to be in a militia
right,
group to like overthrow the democracy or something like that. But then, like, on the other hand, like, you get ICE, all these protests and people spending all day just harassing ICE agents and things like that. And then the police, like in New York City, telling ICE, like, fuck off. We don't care. This is our city. I don't care that you're a federal person. You're not going to commit, like, blatant civil rights violations
right,
in our city where we have, sanction over this stuff. But, like, and also, like, like a lot of stuff like insurrection and like it's basically trying to get people to risk their own incarceration or in the event of civil war, like death for somebody else. And it's like, is Donald Trump really the person that people want to, it's
right,
like, there's not that much vote. Like a lot of the voter fraud tends to be on Republicans. And a lot of the stuff that I hear articles about and headlines are is like, it's the Republican officials getting voted
yeah,
or
for
sorry,
sure,
busted for voter fraud. And so it's like, it is a weird thing to like, cause you are risking punishment to help somebody else, and that person is Donald Trump, who doesn't give a fuck about you and is really old and might be poisoning himself with aspirin right now as we speak. Like, I'm not like, I don't know. I just like, how do you think it's likely that we would even have a civil war? That involves like Americans like living in the woods for the next like 3 years.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I personally don't think most people I know, even if they kind of support Trump, are like willing to put any of their like own skin on the line for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I very much hope that we don't have to have a civil war, right? Like it's crazy that we even have to talk in this way and imagine it. Except I would say that um, for so long, for the last 10 years, and maybe even before that, under Trump, I think we've all suffered from a lack of imagination, right? Like, how many times in the last 10 years have we heard like, oh, he's not going to win. He's not going to do that. There are guardrails. He can't, no one has ever tried to do that before. And,
Yeah. And he
and
just blows through all the
right, and he
guardrails.
blows through all the guardrails, and we all end up suffering from this lack of
Yeah.
imagination about what could happen. And so I think that there is, how do I say it right? Like a valuable mental game that we can play where we imagine, okay, everything else so far has blown past our expectations. What if we actually got to a hot civil war? And then I think you're exactly right that, we're suddenly imagining, not being able to live in our homes because, we're like crouched in the woods, in a refugee camp,
Yeah.
trying to arm ourselves with secondhand weapons and fighting against, whatever. And I think that should make everybody obviously extremely, extremely uncomfortable. I mean, for me, I know I immediately think like, but what about my cats?
Right. Yeah.
Where will my cats be?
Right.
They'll probably be dead or wild or like, like I can't imagine huddling out in the cold night after night, being a guerrilla, fighter in some kind of civil war and learning how to use a gun, at the age of 55, finally actually touching, uh,
Yeah.
owning and touching a weapon and having like, I
Well,
think
and
that
and
it's,
it's like kind of a thing too, where it's like there's such a monopoly on force from the government. It's like the whole idea of Second Amendment, like rising up against a tyrannical government. It's like it's losing its relevance when, like, from 1,000 miles away, some dude in a computer with a a drone just bombs. Like any group of like combatants that are trying to take on the government. So I don't know. Luckily, we have a civilian control of the military, and the military is like the biggest pushback against Trump and more like his fascist
yeah.
impulses to like shoot Americans or something like that.
I'm
But
optimistic about that, right? Like, so far, I think that the thing really keeping Trump in check is, and Hegseth, is that the military is pushing back in ways that are
yeah,
not visible to us in sort of
yeah.
the civilian populace.
And there's such a culture of the officers of like taking serious their, I don't know, the Constitution, that they all swear oaths to die
Exactly.
protecting and that
Exactly.
kind of thing. Yeah. We did mention the aspirin thing, but what do you make of Trump's health? Like the giant purple hands, he admitted he uses makeup. Did you see the McDonald's order that I think the Wall Street Journal was reporting? And
No.
this cracks me up because, okay, well, if you didn't see it, I got the quote here. The Wall Street Journal quoted RNC chair Joe Gruters. I don't know how to say it, but basically, the RNC chair said he was shocked to witness Trump eat French fries, McDonald's quarter pounder hamburger, a Big Mac, and a filet of fish in one sitting. Now, when I write comedy all the time about Trump. This is one sitting, right? When I was reading that, I woke up in the morning, I saw that. I literally thought somehow they were quoting me because in my comedy, I regularly write like almost that exact order. And it like seems ridiculous. It's like I make fun of him. And usually I add a McFlurry or a chocolate shake, which I guess Trump doesn't
Right.
eat.
Right.
But
Why
it's like,
wouldn't
I
you?
literally thought like, that's so ludicrous. I thought somehow they were quoting my comedy as if it was real in the Wall Street Journal. But no, that's a real thing. So like with Trump, oftentimes my satire is not satirical enough
Yeah.
and it's not absurd enough to like compete with the real absurdity that Trump does. But
Yeah. For sure.
uh
I
isn't that wild?
So
Wild odor.
you may know this or you may not. So I'm writing a science fiction book, and I haven't published chapters recently because I've been so busy with other stuff. But
Yeah.
it's basically like a near future dystopia, and there's so many things that I've written in the book that like end up happening. Have happened over the
Yeah,
course of like
right.
the last 5 years. And I'm like, God damn it! Like
Yeah.
it was outrageous when I wrote it, and now it's a thing that actually happened. So yeah, like hearing that, of course, my reaction is like, does it surprise anybody that Donald Trump eats like two
Garbage.
burgers and a fillet of fish and a
Yeah.
giant Diet Coke and a giant fries? Like, you know, that is the least shocking thing that I've ever learned
Yeah.
about him. That he's like, oh, my heart health
Yeah.
you'd imagine he should say,
Yeah.
my heart health is in
Right.
terrible condition, but hand me that cheeseburger,
Yeah.
would ya?
See, I have my idea is that he's taking all this aspirin because he says he wants thin blood. I suspect that he knows his arteries are just clogged with like decades of trans fat and like solidified Big
For
Mac
sure,
sauce.
for
I
sure.
think he thinks he needs thin blood to not have a heart attack and not have a blockage. Like if his blood gets
Oh,
too thick,
100%. That's what's
he'll
going
have a heart
on, right?
attack.
Like somewhere along the way that he heard he was
Yeah.
supposed to take baby aspirin to thin his blood, and
Yeah.
now he's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
come on, I need it
Right.
thin enough to squeeze through those arteries.
Now, this is funny. Somebody did a calculator on the McDonald's website, and that order comes out to 1,740 calories, 2,410 milligrams of sodium, and 89 grams of fat. So that's like nearly like the average, what is it, like 2,200 or something calories? That's like almost an entire person's diet in one meal. He does. Yeah.
Again, I say, does this actually surprise anybody? I mean,
Yeah.
look, when you are a paragon of fitness like Donald Trump, when you're 6'4"
Healthiest
and
president we've ever had.
225, and
Right.
what was the thing that they released like a year ago that was, oh, Donald Trump is a perfectly, a great specimen of manhood at 6'4" and
Yeah.
220 and
Yeah.
10% body fat. And I was like,
Right.
please.
And the height thing is funny too, because people will like see celebrities that he stands next to and he's like quite a bit shorter. And like
Right.
their height is listed at like 6'2" or 6'4", whatever he claims he is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Moving forward to 2026, what do you make of the idea that we might have our first trillionaire now that Elon Musk is, I guess, just adding like 100 billion here, 100 billion there to his net worth, and a lot of that's made up because obviously the Tesla stock value is a little bit of a Ponzi scheme because Tesla is not making enough cars and is not competitive enough with all the other car companies to warrant being like triple their stock value.
Yeah.
But do you think, should we cut off like, people say we shouldn't have billionaires. Should we maybe all agree no trillionaires? Like once you get to 999 billion, like just fuck it. You're
Hey, man,
done. You're not getting any
I've
more money.
said, I've made the joke before that like no billionaires, right? That
Mhm.
like once you get what I posted a couple months ago was like, here's an idea. How about you can get to 999,999,999.99, right? And then immediately after that, we hand you a plastic trophy, like a little plastic trophy, that says, congratulations, you won capitalism.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
You win. You're a winner.
You get a T-shirt,
You did it,
maybe a
right? You get a
crown or
t-shirt.
something.
You get a t-shirt, a nice ringer tee, it's nice
Yeah.
high quality. And then everything after that, like immediately goes into like feeding people and getting kids medicine and paving roads and, like,
Yeah.
so should there be trillionaires? Absolutely the fuck not. And like, here's the thing. There's the poetic part of me that thought, when we learned Greek mythology and when we learned like the original classic archetypes, we never thought that we would live in a time where we would see maybe such a perfect example of hubris and greed and like the perfect, like it is a Greek myth waiting to happen. He is the first man to become a trillionaire, and never has there been anybody less worthy of being a trillionaire,
Yeah.
right? Like never has there been anybody of more abjectly craven moral character and like the belief that he needs to get all of these women pregnant because he has superior genes
For his genes. Yeah.
right? It's like the most disgusting,
Yeah.
but somehow perfect example of everything that we learned from Greek mythology and the gods and all the original, the original archetypical stories of, don't be a bad person and be unworthy, or you will be slighted by the gods.
And it's weird too, because all those billionaires are like really obsessed with Lord of the Rings. Like Peter Thiel names every company he has after some like obscure reference in Lord of the
Right,
Rings.
right,
And it's very weird because that's not at all the moral of Lord of the Rings. It's
right,
like not at
right.
all what J.R.R. Tolkien was about.
Like Palantir, right? Like he names the
Yeah,
company Palantir about the scrying, the magic crystal ball scrying orb that
right.
actually ends up taking over your brain and being a tool of Sauron, the big bad, the big evil. Bro, you
You know,
maybe read the whole thing before you name
yeah.
something.
Yeah, isn't your dystopian scheme to spy on everybody and have like total control over everybody? Isn't that a little too on the nose? So you
Right,
name it
right.
Palantir.
Do you
Yeah,
really, do you want to create a panopticon and literally call it a panopticon? Like that
they
means
kind of
something.
do. Yeah. What are your thoughts going forward in 2026 on AI in general? Do you think, are you utopian, dystopian? Do you think AI will just never be as good as they're promising? Is it kind of like a Ponzi scheme in which they're just spending billions of dollars on all these data centers, hoping that in a year or two there's some profit, that right now there is no profit, not enough to warrant like the amount of money that they're spending and energy that they're using? Like, do you
Yeah,
think it's just going to be a giant bubble, kind of like the dot-com bubble, where every company's just throwing money, hoping profit will come eventually? And like, even Chat GPT, it's like, you know, uh, millions of dollars of profit, but they're spending billions of dollars on all this stuff. And,
yeah.
just fingers crossed, somehow they figure out a way to make more advertising money off it or something.
Dash it is literally everything that you just said. It is all of that, right? Like I'm an active user of Chat GPT, not for writing, for like if you have a giant data set, like an Excel spreadsheet that has
Mhm.
600,000 rows in it, for example, it is fucking great to be able to upload that thing into Chat GPT and say, please segment this data for me and give me discrete outputs in
Right.
40,000 row chunks, right? It is great for that. It is great. It is fucking terrible for everything else,
Yeah.
right? Like in terms of like the written content that it produces, it's a disaster. Um, Dana and I have both worked in tech for a really long time, and we like to say that um, no one would ever release a product this broken into the public and be like, it's ready for people to use, and have it be so broken that literally underneath you have to say something like, don't believe everything that ChatGPT tells you because it's prone to hallucinations. If you had an
Yeah.
employee like that, you'd fucking fire them.
Yeah. Just making up stuff. Yeah.
you
That's
know,
very true.
I think that AI is it is the thing of our times that we are going to have to confront, and again, like the fall of American democracy, it is the thing that we are going to massively unite around. The New York Times just ran an opinion piece by Michelle Goldberg that was entitled something like "The AI Backlash is Coming," and which of the two parties is going to own it. And while I kind of resent that frame as being like, oh, it could be a Democrat issue or a Republican issue, it should just be a human issue, right? AI is anti-human at its fundamental, construct, because it, so Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, recently did an interview where he said, in kind of like, oh, haha, isn't this funny? Microsoft, the the constraining factor behind building out more AI capacity is no longer about access to chips. NVIDIA and the other chip makers are making enough chips. The constraining factor, Microsoft has thousands, tens of thousands of chipsets in reserve that are not deployed yet
Hmm.
in hot boxes, which means they're, in servers and actually running, doing their thing, because there's not enough electricity,
Right.
because we don't have enough electricity to be able to actually deploy as many servers as just Microsoft wants to deploy. And then consider that Facebook and Apple and Google and OpenAI, like they all are in this place. So it is an environmental disaster. It is a social disaster because literally jobs are going away. There is confirmation that companies are not hiring right now because they believe that the open jobs that they've got will probably be able to be eliminated by AI. And so they're not hiring. And soon we will get to a point where AI is good enough that they can continue. They've already started to lay people off because they've been replaced by AI. It will continue. There's an entire generation of folks who are coming out of college right now with degrees that they may not be able to use because an entry level job
Right.
is the easiest thing to replace with AI in its kind of current form, if you do it right, human in the loop, blah, blah, blah. So, like, it's literally everything, Dash. It's like, it is good. There's really interesting stuff that's coming out of AI. It is a nightmare from a social point of view and from, a job market point of view
Yeah.
and from human worth point of view. It's an environmental disaster. It is also a bubble. It is also like
Yeah.
the oligarchy trying to build something and use something to like control the masses. Like, it's everything.
Yeah, and I wonder if it too, like, I think it's making a lowest common denominator kind of thing. And it's like, Wikipedia, for example, I love Wikipedia, but like every line, there's like a history of like 10,000 switches and like word changes and disagreements among like moderators. So it's like you're going to get this weird thing where these oligarchs are going to build their own AI just to make, basically brainwash people into what they want.
Yep.
And so that's kind of a weird thing. But on the other hand, it's also so low common denominator. It's like reading an entire article Wikipedia takes, like 20 minutes to go through like a page on some guy from like a general from World War II and
Sure.
know about it. So, but more and more people are just doing everything through ChatGPT and they get like 3 paragraphs and everything is so vague that I think part of me is like almost like you'll stand out more as more people depend on AI and use it and more people go through school only using AI, like critical thinking. Like granted, they'll maybe, start doing more verbal tests or, there's ways you can like retool school and education and things like that to
Yeah.
get around like the obvious cheating and things like that. But like at the end of the day, it's going to be the people who have critical thinking skills will move up faster in the world, or people with more like robust education of a lot of things is not just like the 2 paragraph explanation on anything that comes
Yeah.
from ChatGPT. So
Yep.
that's kind of interesting to think about. But, you definitely have been hearing about for years that education is kind of collapsing and kids these days don't have the attention spans. And that's just from smartphones and social media. That's before, everyone's going to AI and no one's writing a paper for themselves anymore. It's like that, that buzzworthy case of that student that, used AI or whatever, and just wrote because God said for that like Oklahoma paper that she wrote that got a failing grade. And then, that was a whole mess. But it's just like that's going to be happening everywhere. People not working, not the critical thinking. And I don't know. I guess part of me is like with that lowest common denominator effect, the people who are smart and have critical thinking will just stand out more. So I don't know. Maybe that's one glimmer of hope for if you're a high functioning normal human being capable of,
Right. I would hope,
empathy and stuff. Yeah.
or I don't know. There's a really interesting video that I've seen a couple places now that is uh I, Dash, I've got like 10 things to say and I don't know why I'm picking this particular thing to focus on, but the video is like it looks sort of like an old school like educational cartoon kind of thing, but
Mhm.
it's like how you can survive an attack from a robotic dog, right? And
Yeah.
it's this video on like, robotic dogs often travel in packs and use, wireless communication to network. But it's really weird because, like it looks like it should be from a video game, where you're,
Right.
like it's set in the future and you and your family are trying to escape, robotic dogs. And I literally lost my train of thought. I don't
No, no, you're
I don't
good.
know why I picked that particular thing, but
Here's something. I want to get your opinion on this. Have you seen the Twitter? This is everywhere on Twitter right now, but people saying, "Hey Grok," like it's a picture of like a hot girl, and it's a "Hey Grok, put her in a bikini" or something like that. So like right now, it's like been trending like all week of just straight up. I guess that's like kind of like low key soft porn, but like
right.
isn't that like literally a crime to just like undress women and just have like Twitter's like AI do
Yeah.
this and just any user, and that I was talking to Adrian Polk about this, and it's just like ultimately, what's the test case that like with AI, like how is it legal to just essentially any woman in any role or any public notoriety? There's just going to be like endless porn made of them, and like how is that legal? How is that? How do you not get sued out of existence? Like how is Brock not being sued that all
This is
these women are
literally
just
the debate at my at the Christmas dinner table in my family, right? We were debating, you know, AI and using AI or other mechanisms to, you know, to basically spoof somebody else's
Mhm.
identity. And I know um I won't reveal how, Dash, but I know that there are tools that you can use
Uh-huh.
where you take like any woman and say like, here's her in a nice sundress, and it creates a version of her with her boobs hanging out, right?
Hmm.
Um, I've never done this, mind you. I've never used this tool. I've just been places where I've seen advertisements for it.
Hmm.
But like that should be a crime. That is a
Yeah.
crime, right? And so what I was arguing at the dinner table is we need an amendment or something that basically says you own your digital identity. Like you
Right.
own
Your
your
likeness.
face, you own your DNA, you own your facial structure and your voice, you own your online digital footprint. Like an information protection act that is about protecting the things that make you you and uniquely recognizable as you.
Right.
And we were talking about this because apparently there's some girl who AI'd a picture of her with LeBron, right? I'm pretty sure it was LeBron. And but it was like her courtside, and they're, like she's on the sidelines, and they're talking, and then he's like hugging her, and then she's like standing with him, and he's got his hands on her waist, and like really intimate kind of poses, all fake, right? All AI.
Yeah.
And we were arguing about this, and somebody's like, oh no, that's art. And I was like, it's not though.
It's
Like
hard.
there isn't, you can't
Right.
argue that like, oh, my prompt engineering was so good that I created this piece of art. It's literally stealing another person's identity, and you're defaming them because,
Yeah. Right.
assuming LeBron is in a solid committed relationship, now there's a piece of like looks like photographic evidence that basically shows him like on the verge of cheating, right?
Yeah.
And the idea here is that shouldn't you own your own physical, characteristics and your identity in such a way that if someone produced something like that, you could sue for whatever, for damages, for copyright
Right.
infringement, for slander or whatever. And and we ended up talking about this idea that there are these tools out there. You could take any woman's face and body and turn it into
Yeah.
basically porn, not just softcore porn, but porn,
Right.
and it should be illegal, and it should be a crime. And
The 2028 election is going to be real fun with this.
no, exactly,
Just
like
all fake
you know
everything.
I was like, what's going to happen when when in the next election a video comes out of one of the candidates sucking a dick, right? And it's
Yeah.
entirely and completely fake. And and there are going to be some irreducible number of people who will believe it no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And we're entering an era where there's going to be forever now some irreducible number of people who will never believe what they see in video evidence,
Yeah.
and
That's true. Yeah.
some number of
No one will
people
know
who
anything.
believe everything.
Plus, it's annoying too. It's just, this is like a lower stakes thing. But just when you see a video of like a puppy doing something cute or babies doing something funny, like, did that happen? You see a photo of like animals out in the wilderness. Was that real or was that just fake? A
Right.
beautiful sunset. Was that just completely made up? So I
Yeah.
mean, we definitely got to do something to make it obvious when it's like some kind of watermark or something that makes you aware of what's real or what's not.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a video, like it was this adorable video of like the cutest cat you've ever seen, like this super
Hmm.
cute kitten. And I was like, "Aw." And then the video keeps going, and like soon it's the cat
Yeah.
like making sushi. And I was like, God fucking damn it. Like the
Yeah.
entire thing is
Right.
fake, like
Everything's fake. Yeah. What do you make of people drinking less than ever? And now we have this thing of like phone free bars. I guess, what do you make of just Gen Z and Gen Alpha kind of coming to terms with like a fully integrated internet digital like existence, even when they're young? And like, you get the idea now where like Gen Z bars, like, people don't dance. They don't do anything that could be considered cringy that older people would dance and have fun or drink too much just because there's smartphones everywhere. Do you think this is really bad for society, that people can't have childhoods, they can't have fun anymore? Do you think there will be some pushback against this?
I you know, I, I think a backlash towards the way our modern society exists is absolutely logical. I think if I were a kid in this day and age, I would probably be on that boat.
Hmm.
I mean, look, I've done a lot of things in my life that if phones existed when I was coming up, and
Yeah.
there were videographic
Yeah.
evidence of my existence and the mistakes that I've made in my life, I would probably be even more of a giant bundle of paranoid,
Yeah.
constant nervous breakdown crisis than I
Uh-huh.
already am. Like, how, like, so, I made the joke about, we're going to see a video of a candidate doing something that was artificially generated. But like, when you think about how many people have used phones during sex, right?
Hmm.
We're in someone is going to be the first president who we've seen their sex tape, right?
Yeah.
It's bound to happen at this point
Well, with
because
Trump, with the Epstein files, might already have that
right.
president.
Well, probably we've already got it, right? Definitely Trump and hell, maybe Bill Clinton. But I'm saying, like, I think that the fact that younger people are realizing the invasiveness of technology in their lives and are rebelling against it. Some people
Hmm.
are rebelling against it is absolutely logical. And I think it gives me hope that maybe we could have some kind of legislation that talks about a broader perspective on privacy because our technology has far exceeded our legal capacity, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
technology has outstripped our laws. And so we're living in this really weird and icky era where I don't own my likeness. I don't own my voice print. I don't own my DNA. And I should own those things.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't own my digital footprint on the web, and I should. And and maybe these kids kind of realizing, I don't know that they've fully thought it through to that extent, but maybe they have, and maybe they're realizing that this is not a thing that is healthy for us to exist in.
Yeah,
Um,
it would be nice too if that, we adopt that Australian law. It seems like there is kind of like a push for it in Congress of banning smartphones until you're 16. I think that's like a pretty good no-brainer. If everyone's on the same page and everybody has to abide by it, everyone will do it.
Right, right. And we should do what Finland does. They teach kids how to discern the truth, right? Like, we were talking about AI and AI in schools. I think part of what we should be teaching kids is how to use it correctly. And then also, like, hey, you know what? Your assignment is to go write this paper with AI. And then your next assignment is to take the paper that you wrote with AI, and with no AI allowed, you have to go fact check it and research it. And you have to,
Yeah, right.
dissect it and tell me, did the AI actually come to the correct conclusions? Is there any evidence of hallucination in there? Like, and then for your test, I'm going to sit you down in a room with no phones and no Wi-Fi access and a pen and a paper, and you've got to rewrite the essay, kind of from memory, not to show that you're memorizing, random factoids, but to show me that you've logically processed all that. Like, we should be thinking about, Finland teaches their kids how to determine fact from fiction, right? And how to source and vet their sources so that they can say this is true, or this is the most likely thing to be true, and this one is probably propaganda,
Right.
and
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. I think education definitely has so much room to grow and adapt to like all of the challenges. And of course, it's like literally a totally different generation. It's a totally different childhood, totally different world that young people today are, coming of age in.
yeah.
I'm curious, what do you think about going forward into 2026? Do you think trad wives and like kind of like, like that Mormon wives show is like really big right now? I haven't seen it, but, I'm sure it's as trashy as any of the other, like Real Housewives kind of shows. But do you think like male loneliness and the kind of like female loneliness that comes from that? Like, what do you make of like our social changes or maybe like the gender wars that are going on into 2026? Kind of broad, go where. What about trad wives? What do you make of trad wives? Do you think
Well,
that'll
I
keep
you know I
going, or do you think
really
it's a fad?
I'm pausing, right? Because I'm like, what is a gay guy allowed to say about gender
Hey, maybe you got the
dynamics?
best. Maybe you got the best perspective because you're not, so to speak, in
Yeah,
skin in the
yeah.
game of the gender wars
You
the
know,
same way.
um, I mean, man, like, there's a part of me that kind of gets the appeal of trad wives, like both have, they're kind of not joking. I'd love it if somebody was cooking and cleaning in my house and keeping shit
Yeah,
organized, because that's all the
yeah,
shit I'm not good at, right? You know, and there's a piece of me being very honest. It's like, I don't know, man. If he's tall and sexy and swinging some pipe, I'd cook and clean and do
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I get it.
I like,
My
it's one
job
thing to
is to
be a
make
trad wife.
babies. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. I want to do it.
It's one thing to be a trad wife, though, but it gets off the rails when it becomes I'm stupid and women are dumb. Like women who say this, like I just have to give in to whatever my husband wants because he's just inherently smarter than me as a male.
Right.
That gets maybe a little too far.
And for people who don't know me, obviously I was joking about, it needs to be said. There was a lot of sarcasm in what I just said. I do think it's interesting that we are seeing and Dana and I talk about this, and she's kind of really into, I think in 2026, she's going to do a lot of talking around, um, this backlash against feminism that we're seeing and how trad wives, kind of as a specific example, are representative of this idea that there is cultural programming that is happening in our media and in our society right now that basically says feminism is dumb and that, a woman's, it's the whole great chain of being thing, right? From the Victorian era of uh, God is over everything and Jesus is king and the man serves Jesus, and the woman serves the man and the kids serve, it's that whole like
Yeah,
hierarchical,
right.
like patriarchal everything. Um, and the tradwife movement and, even like the soft girl movement of like, oh, I just need a guy to take care of me. Like all of this is specific cultural programming that is being perpetrated against our culture, against our society to create a rift, right? To create an even bigger rift
Yeah.
between us so that the things that we agree upon, I mean, I'm going to zoom all the way out here and say, people have maybe heard me say this before. We are in a war right now. Like we are actively living through the Third World War. It is an information war. It is a reality war. It doesn't look like the last World War that we were in or the one before that because there are different weapons available now and there are different tools and information and the things that we have previously agreed upon as like set reality, all of it is coming into question. And so cultural programming about how feminism is bad and I just want to be a traditional wife
Yeah.
who serves my husband,
Right.
like that exists because somebody is deploying that against us as a weapon. And we
Yeah.
are not.
Or it's not even nefarious always. Sometimes it's just a grift. A lot of those trad wife people, they have
Sure.
teams of people. They have like 10 employees. They're not watching their kids. They're not doing any of that stuff. It's literally, they're just getting
100%.
advertising money by putting on this entirely created fake front.
I mean, it's like what we learned about Rush Limbaugh, right? Like he was literally paid to spew nonsense, and he may have believed some of it or all of it, but he
Yeah.
knew that he was performing a role,
Yeah. It was
that
just
he was
entertainment.
getting rich off of just propagating these ideas, whether or not he believed them.
Yeah, here, kind of changing subjects just a little bit. What do you make of the kind of Republican divides going into these midterms? So, like, kind of amping up toward 2028. You got a lot of internal GOP fights. So, you got the Nick Fuentes versus Ben Shapiro and, Tucker Carlson and that. You got Erica Kirk versus Candace Owens. Like, you get like a very conspiratorial, like, what's so bad about the Nazis kind of worldview against like the normie conservatives that, like, while they still want to work with those people for tax cuts for the rich, they're not like truly insane or conspiratorial, and they have some respect for the Constitution. But do you have any ideas on like? Let's assume that the midterms go badly for Republicans. There's a little bit of a blue wave. Maybe Democrats take back the House. But what do you make of 2028? Like, and also assuming Trump won't try to run again and have to go through that dumb constitutional fight where he'll obviously lose from the Supreme Court, right? But like, what do you make of 2026 for the internal disputes and feuds going on in the Republican Party?
I mean, I want to make a joke that's going to get me canceled, right? Which is like somebody's $1 million idea is going to be creating some, Nick Fuentes neck armor just to make sure that he doesn't get Charlie Kirked out of the, whole thing. Like, Nick Fuentes is disgusting, right? And the fact that
Yeah.
anybody in the Republican Party is pointing to him as any kind of ideological pathway that deserves validation or affirmation inside the party is proof that they
Hmm.
have no moral bottom and that they're willing to do and say anything and embrace any ideology that is going to get them to retain power, right? And I think that it is logical that the Republican Party, the MAGA front appears to be fracturing. That I'm not the first or the only or the smartest person to have said that whatever magic charisma Donald Trump possesses, whatever, you know, deal with the devil that Donald Trump made that gets him this weird charisma, isn't transferable to anybody else, not his kids, not his sons,
Definitely not his son.
not right, not his sons for
Not Don
sure.
Jr. and Eric. I miss
Yeah,
them.
not JD Vance, not anybody, right? And so he will die because all humans do.
Hmm.
I've been told. And none of his power is transferable, or not most of his power is not transferable. And JD Vance isn't going to be able to do it. Somebody made a really good point that like he runs things, we've all said, like he runs things like a mob boss. And a lot of those deals are sort of spoken only, right? They're not really written down. And yes, he's addled and dementia and whatever, but there are still probably some things he knows about the way these deals have been constructed that other people won't know. And so that the moment he dies or is incapacitated and JD Vance becomes president or acting president, someone's going to come to President Vance and they're going to say, hey, are we supposed to be giving this defense contractor that $60 billion
Right.
deal for the
Yeah.
Norfolk thing? And people are
Uh-huh.
going to be like, I don't, I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. Did he write it down? No, he didn't write anything down. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's all going to start to unravel, right? And all of them are going to, they all obviously want in on the grift. All of them are going to want to be like, well, we could do that, but we're going to ask them for an extra 10 billion that goes directly to me. And it's all going to start to fall apart, right? And so
Right.
I think that we're seeing the early cracks because people are realizing that Donald Trump is not forever, and there's Machiavellian machinations going on in the background to kind of try to figure out how they can place themselves best to be in for the power and the money. And so they're absolutely starting to self-destruct. We're seeing the early cracks because, they see that the end is coming. I do think if Trump is alive for another couple of years, that he will absolutely try to run for a third term. He I, it seems inconceivable to me based on again, we are suffering from a lack of imagination if we think that Donald Trump isn't going to try to violate the 22nd Amendment, right?
Yeah.
And we're also suffering from a lack of imagination if we think that this Supreme Court isn't specifically constructed in such a way that they will find some obscure and insane reason to be like, oh, no, you know what? It's actually okay if you
If you're not
squint
consecutive
and,
or something.
poke yourself in the eye and,
Yeah.
read the, 22nd Amendment upside down. It actually says, right? Like, I'm sure that they will find some reason to do it. I think if he runs, I think if he runs in 2028, he's going to win again because we were absolutely fucked. And because I think the system is broken and broken even more in such a way that, there is, I think there's possibilities for fraud in ways that, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he won't live. I don't think he'll survive another
I,
3
I
years.
don't
I
think
think
he
he's
will
like
either.
plummeting health wise. I do think the Supreme Court, it's like interesting because like they do rule against Trump sometimes. I think they're very rabidly partisan in a old school conservative way because I think they're definitely going to rule against the tariffs. I think even the Trump administration is very aware. And I'm sure there's conversations in the background, like obviously like start planning to get like stop your tariffs because the Supreme Court. It's like literally within the Constitution that all of that has to go through Congress. Like it's all enumerated in the legislative branches stuff. But maybe assuming Trump dies, JD Vance takes over. immediately I would imagine like all the other Republicans that want to run in 2028 are going to start backstabbing him, right? Like already JD Vance doesn't like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and like other senators that will run are going to start sandbagging him and trying to make him look bad because they want to run now that Trump's out of the way. Do you think the 2028 primary is going to be very, very messy? Do you think JD Vance is like the front runner who will win, or do you think he's just so unlikable that it's a jump ball and it's not going to go to JD Vance because he's unlikable?
I yeah, I mean,
If you
honestly,
just had to guess wildly.
my
Yeah.
my dash my the very pessimistic part of me, right? Which is actually quite a big part of me is it's all a disaster. It's all going to be an ever expanding disaster as we move
Yeah.
forward. Everything else that we've talked about, fake videos and the lack of consensus reality, all of it is just going to get worse. And you know, Dana and I, we did a kind of 2026 predictions on our last Daily Whatever show for the
Yeah.
turn of the year. And my very real prediction is we're gonna we're gonna see a sitting member of Congress or a Supreme Court justice assassinated in 2026. Like we are going to see a level of political violence that we thought we had left behind in the 60s maybe happen again in this country, and I think it's going to be even worse than that. I think there will probably be some kind of terror attack, whether it is a false flag or a real terror attack, I don't know. um, I think that we had better pray that we get the kind of majorities in
Yeah.
Congress that we need in
That's
2026.
right.
And I think that 2028 is just absolutely going to be the biggest clusterfuck of a mess that we have ever seen in our lives. I think
Yeah.
the Democratic Party is going to rip itself to shreds because there are
Do you think so?
people.
In what way? Like in a woke litmus test kind of way that like they.
Not a woke litmus test. I think that there are people like me who are absolutely done with Schumer and Jeffries and Pelosi and like the traditional Democratic power locus that believes in seniority and has tried to keep AOC down and, that wouldn't endorse Mamdani at I'm done. I'm fucking done with that, right? And I do go to my local Democratic Party meeting, even though I'm in blood red Indiana, and I'm going to ensure that that there is like a grassroots movement here, and like if it is in my power to ensure that we are having a conversation in the Democratic Party about how we have fucked ourselves over these last decades by taking money from APAC and being in the pocket of big corporations. Like we need a literal second American revolution here. I want it to be bloodless very
Yeah.
deeply. But we need a radical rethinking of what this country means and how it exists. And like 2028 is absolutely going to be about the Democratic Party fighting for those things at the same time that the Republican Party is fighting to see who gets to inherit Trump's mantle, and
Yeah.
they're ripping themselves to shreds. Like I just don't think that there's any possibility of some kind of like peaceful and lovely 2028 election where clearly the best person wins, and we all, come together and sing Kumbaya. Like it's just going to be an
Well, do you think there might be some reaction to Trump? Like if you look at a lot of the presidents, like the president who wins is kind of like the opposite in many ways of the president that preceded him. So maybe like both parties would be receptive in the primaries to like maybe like an overtly Christian values kind of person of like lowering the temperature. Like maybe that we would just have that, pendulum switched back to a more civil kind of political
I mean,
community.
maybe, right, like I inherently rebel at that idea, but then there's a piece of me that's like,
Yeah.
if it was James Tallarico, right, like sure, like
Right.
I like him and I like his version of Christianity and what he says, but I think that, again, I say we're at war. We are in the middle of the Third World War. It is an information war and a reality war. And Russia and China and others are actively working against us to basically tear us apart from the inside. Our freedom of speech, the First Amendment, has been weaponized against us to such a great degree that I don't know
Yeah.
how we get back to consensus reality.
Right. And you know what's wild? It's like when you look at that map of like where the biggest Facebook groups and stuff are, like they all come from like Africa and India, like on Twitter, you know, with those leaks of like you could see like the where they're located. And
Yeah,
it's just like at some point, it's like, how is like why should a country allow these social media companies to just allow all these bad actors that are not American to just poison all of our like consciousness? It's like every person that you see on Twitter that's like the biggest MAGA troll, it's like that's a person that's just making money from some like warehouse in India.
for
It's
sure.
like a team of people just like making, you know, the pennies from the advertising sold on Facebook to just like poison all our minds, divide us against each other, convince us not to get vaccinated, like
Right.
all these things to just ruin our society.
I
It's
I
insane.
mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, we need a radical rethinking of how we govern ourselves, right? And that includes an amendment for, personal digital privacy, where I own my likeness and my voice and my digital footprint and everything and my DNA. And we also need something, amendments or something that acknowledges that information is a weapon. Information in the wrong hands can be used as effectively as a nuclear bomb and has been done against us. And so, I mean, like, I don't necessarily like where that takes us, right? Where you could be arrested for, I don't want to say be arrested for thought crimes, but, be in possession of information that could get taken away from you because, like, we need to have a conversation deeper and more philosophical than anything that I think we have proven ourselves capable of doing in this country. And
Yeah.
I don't know how we move forward without that conversation. And I also have zero faith that we have the ability to get it done. So,
Well, I don't know. When you look at things like, what is it, Amanda Littman's like run for something, like
mhm,
just record breaking involvement. There's record breaking numbers of people running for seats and stuff like that. And obviously, a lot of them, you know, as we get more and more gerrymandered, a lot of seats are just kind of safe for whichever party anyway.
right.
But I do think 2026 will be a good example of maybe like I've talked about before, that maybe there should be a little bit of ageism, as in, you know, like Democrats, the last like five people that died in office were all Democrats. And
Oh,
so
for
like our
sure.
party's such a gerontocracy where
Yeah.
like not to be ageist in a very negative way, but it's just like with all these changes and the digital stuff, AI, it's like if you're 83, you should not be running for reelection and you should lose your primary and we should get somebody who's like 45 or something like that. You
Honestly,
know what I mean?
and if you're 83, why are you running for office anyway? Like, you should be
Yeah.
retired, for God's sake. Like,
Spend a
you
day with
know,
your grandkids, please.
seriously, like, go live your life,
Yeah.
like, whatever. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Um, I mean, I think that whatever the retirement age is, I kind of feel like you shouldn't really, if you are that age at the time that you're running for office, you shouldn't be allowed to run. If
Yeah.
you're whatever, if you're 62 and you're going to be in office until you're 68 because you got elected to the Senate, okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's fine.
My favorite fact is Chuck. No, no, yeah, Chuck Grassley of Iowa, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. He entered politics when Eisenhower was president,
Right,
like 1958. He's
right,
been in politics since then. He's like 91 or 92 right now. Like
right.
Jesus Christ, like he's gonna have a staffer find his dead corpse in his office because he's so old.
Uh,
Like at some point, you know, it's like. And I do think going back to like the kind of like the grassroots enthusiasm, I do think Democrats are going to have like just way more primary candidates that are going to be calling themselves Democratic Socialists. They're going to be totally for, you know, getting rid of stock options and stuff for all these members of Congress.
yeah,
And then, you know, even things like going to the age, just like Nancy, you know, we can't get boomers to step down. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, they are older than boomers. They're the silent generation.
right.
They were
We're
born in like
silent, right.
1940 or something like that. And it's like, yeah, you know, I just think a generation change, like this is going to be a big generation change, both in the midterms and then certainly in 2028. Because I do think people on both parties are just really like, it's so calcified and we really do need like a giant paradigm shift. And, you know, hopefully like the first thing like in 2026 they do is they have enough votes to get rid of all these stock, you know, options going on in Congress and like
Yeah,
that insane, like everyone goes to Congress and like leaves Congress with like $30 million
right.
based off
No,
of obvious insider trading.
yeah, we should absolutely ban any kind of like private stock ownership, cryptocurrency, anything. Like, if you're in Congress, your job is to serve the people. And
Yeah.
if you've got money, you put it into, I don't know, a managed mutual fund or something. And when you leave Congress, you're like, oh, is it? Oh, great. My
Yeah.
whatever $500,000 grew to be $700,000.
Right.
That's nice. It shouldn't be, yeah, like my $500,000 grew to be 30 million because I
Yeah.
knew everything that was happening before the public did.
You should have to write a shitty book that gets bought up by a lot of people sucking up to you and give speeches for
Right.
insane rates. You got to do it
Right.
the honest way.
Yeah. Right. The way Barack Obama did it, God damn it.
Yeah. Let's see. I got a couple more notes before I'll let you go. What do you make of the like Trump's just like this is interesting because it's such an unforced error with the tariffs. Because I heard somebody on a podcast, I forget who, they were talking about how like really these tariffs are like the worst of all worlds. Because one, Trump is doing these tariffs that are willy nilly. They're often inspired based on Trump's personal vengeance. Like when he got pissed off at Brazil and ramped up the rate, he got pissed off like India wasn't going to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, so their tariff rate went up. But so he's not doing them specific enough to actually create. Like Biden was spending a lot of money to build like chip factories here, battery factories here.
Right.
And that takes a lot of work to make that happen. Trump's just willy nilly doing tariffs and then not investing or helping figure out any of these supply chains. So like the tariffs are not actually creating domestic manufacturing. They're actually losing a lot of domestic manufacturing jobs because if you don't know what the tariff rate's going to be in 3 weeks, let alone 4 years, and the time it takes you to build some giant factory, you're never going to build the factory because like the tariffs could go up like 30 times and totally make it not profitable for you anymore.
For
And
sure.
then on top of that, it's like the tariffs aren't really doing anything to address the cost of living because the tariffs are so willy-nilly. It's like, he tariffs bananas and coffee that we can't make here in any climate in America. So we're just like raising prices on consumers for no reason
Yeah.
and finding out the hard way that coffee is not going to grow in Iowa.
Right.
So it's like this weird thing where like Republicans in Congress don't want the tariffs. I think all Republicans are going to be so relieved when the Supreme Court says, yeah, the president has no authority to do this. Everyone will be relieved. It'll be good for Trump, whether he admits it or not, that the needless economic destruction that he's causing will stop if they take away that power. But I guess, are you happy that the economy's kind of collapsing now, like only in his first year while he's president, instead of what George W. Bush did, where the economy collapsed right before he left office, and then Republicans spent the entire Obama era being like, "Why are we growing faster? I thought you were so good on the economy." It's like he just inherited a mess. But what do you make of just the kind of economic supply chain problems, the cost of living, like unforced errors that Trump's kind of like fucking over his own administration with?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. And I'm not happy that the economy is crashing because I don't want to root against America and I don't want to root against Americans, right? Which I know sounds like a politician's answer, but seriously, like I'm one of the people right now who's going to be inordinately fucked if the economy really crashes.
Yeah.
I don't want it to happen, even though I am in a way happy that a Republican is actually eating the shit sandwich that he, himself is shitting out, right? And
Yeah.
so like Trump, here's the thing. I'm going to go back to saying we are in a reality war. We are in an information war because when I was growing up, I sound like such a fucking old man, but I mean, I literally remember learning in school, learning in college, like in high school and in college, that tariffs are bad. That tariffs serve a very limited purpose in terms of an economic policy, and that like consensus reality was that tariffs were part of what started the Great Depression and fucked everything up, and and that tariffs shouldn't be applied in the way that Trump applied them, right? And like that was what everyone believed, like you could go back 15, 20 years and you would find Republicans who would tell you that. And
you can find them now. They might not say it publicly, but they're texting each other. This is batshit crazy.
Right. Absolutely. And, again, how did we let ourselves get to a place? How did we get to a place where this one dude comes in and finds some crackpot economic professor from some backwater who, believes that tariffs are the way and elevates that person and then turns, the American economy into a fucking disaster zone in exactly the way you said, by applying these tariffs in the most ridiculous ways possible. Like it doesn't make sense that we let this happen. And also, again, like I don't want the economy to go in the shitter, but it looks like it's going to, and it's good that it is, Trump who basically, you know,
Drove off a cliff.
right, drove it off a cliff, and he's Thelma and Louising it, driving off the cliff, and he's going to be the body, at the bottom of the canyon. And that's appropriate. It's just that the rest of us are in the back seat of the car, just
Yeah.
not being able to,
Collateral damage.
yeah, we're collateral damage. Exactly. And so, um, yeah, I think we're in for a world of hurt. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, 2026 and 2028 are going to be a mess. They're going to be a mess for many, many reasons. And now add on top of that, the economy is going to be an absolute shit show. And the good things that Biden was doing, like rebuilding infrastructure and trying to bring chip plants back to the United States, like we've let go of all of that. There are people in various parts of the government, or who are experts and observers of various parts of the government, like the DOJ, for example, who we had Katie Fang on Blue Amp's Amped Up show with Cliff and David a couple weeks ago, and she's an attorney, she's a lawyer, she has studied the DOJ, and she understands the way things work, and very explicitly said the damage that has been done in the DOJ, it's not like the next person gets in and they're going to be able to fix it. It's 10 years or more of damage that needs to
Yeah.
be fixed,
Right.
and that, imagine that's true in the FBI and in the CIA and in the Treasury and in, obviously the Department of Education. Like
Yeah.
every piece of the government is being driven off a cliff simultaneously. And it's not just like we're going to be able to snap our fingers and get it back. We're going to have to rebuild. We're going to have to dig ourselves
Yeah.
out of this pit.
That's one thing that I get a little optimistic about, is that because Trump is causing so much chaos, the next person that comes in, hopefully with like a big blue wave mandate, can really just swing for the fences and like radical change. Because I mean, this is something that as a Democrat, it's so annoying, where like Republicans shit on the government constantly, say it's awful, make it awful. They defund every chance they get, they screw up everything. And then they say, oh, look, the government sucks. Yeah, because you made it suck.
Right.
You rooted
Right.
against it at every chance. You fought everything. You wanted as little money going toward all these programs and stuff as possible, with as many restrictions and regulations and red tape on people getting any kind of benefit. So they basically make the government suck and then say the government sucks, vote for us. So like hopefully you get a Democrat that comes in, he causes enough chaos that we can just swing for the fences and really make big changes, because Democrats get in that awkward position where they're having to defend a lot of government departments and programs that are from the 70s or even like New Deal stuff. So a lot of stuff has kind of gotten obsolete, but because Republicans are like, burn it all down, everything's shitty, let's just have a monarchy and make Trump dictator, right? Like Democrats are in this awkward position where they're defending a lot of kind of obsolete programs that don't function as well as they should. They've got calcified bureaucracy. Just too many things have happened and too many changes over too many years where it's just like hard to keep it running
Yep.
operationally. So hopefully the next Democrat can go wild and just, really make some
Look,
big changes thanks to Trump burning it down, and almost like the wildfire having a new forest grow up behind it.
I hope so, right? But if you look at 2008, right? Like Obama came in, he had that kind of mandate to go big, and the TARP program and all of the stuff that they did, the Economic Recovery Act, should have been bigger, right? Because even with the disaster that George W. Bush left behind and the goodwill that Obama had coming into office, people like Larry Summers, who turns out now we find out was in the Epstein files. Thank you, Ellie Leonard, for helping to illuminate that, even Larry Summers,
Yeah.
Who Obama listened to and trusted, who was on Obama's side, was saying like, oh no, you can't go too big. We could have gone bigger. And in fact, when Krugman and other economists that we trust and respect look back, they say actually the recovery wasn't as strong as it could have been, and there were certain kind of levels of growth and dynamism that we didn't hit because we didn't go big enough, because we got told by the powers that be that you can't go too big. You can go big. And if, God willing, we are in the spot in 26 and 28 where we can make big changes like that, I'm going to be one of the people screaming, hopefully not just from the sidelines, but in somewhere on the field, I hope,
Hmm.
uh, you know, that we should go as big as humanly possible, that this should be a moment of absolute radical transformation in this country because we deserve it and because it's the thing that has to happen to save American democracy and to get us out of this broken late stage capitalism, end time extractive capitalism that we're all suffering through because everything is broken. Everything everywhere all at once is broken. And it's going to take something really big to get us out of it. And, we can't have hand wringers standing up. Oh, you can't do that. That's too much. That's too big. Fuck you. No, we can. We can do big things. We need to do big things.
Yeah. I hope we tell billionaires fuck you more because like California
Yeah,
wants to do that 1% wealth tax. And now you
right.
get like Peter Thiel, like, I'm leaving. And it's like, you got rich in California, this beautiful state, on all the highways, shipping all your products, selling products to all the people. And it's like, you won't give 1% back to like, you became a billionaire thanks to all of these things with like the government does so many things that you can't put a price tag on, from like not being invaded,
Yeah,
having shipping lanes across the world so we get cheap shit from all around the world that comes here safely. Like things are so good, developed, and cheap in America, and like no one wants to pay any taxes. And I feel like Democrats need to it's like kind of Mamdani, like more people that'll just shamelessly say, "Fuck you, we are going to tax you more." It's like
yeah,
these billionaires have been getting tax cuts consistently since the '70s. Like every Republican administration, they cut taxes. In the 1940s and 50s, it was like 90%, got down to like 70%. Now it's at like 25%, and they still want to cut more. And
right.
it's like California is going to raise taxes by 1% and you're going to take your ball and go home. Like, fuck off. Like, I feel like more company, like, we need to change the tax code so that corporations pay more, billionaires pay more, and if they want to leave and go to another state, okay, fine, the money that you're making here in California still will get taxed more or something. But we just need Democrats to. I think about this a lot too because everybody calls every Democrat communist, socialist, fascist. They don't understand any of those terms, but they
Right.
say everything is communism. So it's like, if you're already going to get called a communist, if you're like, let's tax billionaires $1 this year,
Right.
communism, it's like, just go big. They're going to call you communist anyway. They're
Right.
going to attack you no
Absolutely.
matter what you do. Fox News is going to bitch and moan about everything. You
Right.
might as well just go big and say, I don't fucking care about their criticism,
I
you
mean,
know?
there's another thing we need to do, right? Like Fox News needs to basically be legislated out of existence. The
Hmm.
all of the protections that we had around the public airwaves and the obligations that the
Yeah.
networks have towards the public good,
Yeah. Let's have
all
an
of that needs
IRS
to come back,
audit, see what we
right?
find.
And I wasn't joking about my idea of like, you can have $999 million. Like you can. And then we should be able to basically take every fucking dollar after that. Or okay, not every dollar, but 90% of it, like
Yeah. There's that thing with Social Security where it's like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, they pay all their Social Security taxes in like 4 minutes. It's
right.
like already right now, they're done paying Social Security taxes for the entire year because it doesn't go along with like every dollar after a certain point.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, means testing, right? Like does Zuckerberg actually get to collect his social security check? Like, come on. There should be a moment, there should be some kind of like patriotism or
Right.
pride or humanist instinct that basically says, you know what, I don't need social security. Like, yes, I paid into it, but I've got $999 million and I don't
Yeah.
actually need the money that I'm going to get from social security. I'm going to give mine to, I don't know, pay it back into the fund or whatever,
Right.
you
And it's
know?
annoying too, because like the really mega rich used to do a lot of things for the public good. And
Right.
so you could make the premise, okay, we won't like tax billionaires so high as if like they were conscientiously doing anything to
Right. Because
contribute
you're
to
going to get a
society.
Carnegie Library in every
Yeah,
fucking small
exactly.
town
Yeah, like
across the
every town
country.
had a library, yeah, funded like opera houses, like, every big building like that has like some rich person's name attached because they funded it. But then like you get Elon Musk who's like, if the United Nations sends me a detailed list of how to end world hunger, I'll do it. And then they did send him that list. Nope, not doing it. So it's
Right.
like, go fuck yourself,
Right. Right. Like, the thing that people say that I fully agree with like, if I was a billionaire, no, I wouldn't be because like it is just
Yeah,
inherent within me to be like, I would figure out how to make sure every kid in like the 6 school districts, surrounding me got
yeah,
fed and there would be no homeless people and, like I wouldn't do it for the glory. I'd do it to just be like, what would it be like if we could unlock human potential
yeah,
and get to the point where every fucking kid had enough food and a stable enough home life that they could go to school and just learn,
yeah,
and then all those kids get to go to college if they want to, or trade school if
right,
they want to, free of charge. Like, what would it be like if we could just do that in like this town, you know?
yeah.
And
I think,
actually kind of see, the end result of like, oh, hey, look, domestic violence goes down and people are happier and people are more fulfilled and people find careers that they actually want to
right.
do. And go figure.
I think they should do something where if you are a corporation that gets tax cuts and you have a single employee on food stamps or getting some kind of like
Oh,
government
yeah,
subsidy like that, like fuck that. You get no, you like your tax rate's going up because you're not paying your people enough or something. And then, that's like us our taxpayers. We have to pay for their like avarice, and their
right,
greed. And so
right.
I think that would be a
Like
cool
Walmart,
thing.
like some huge percentage of Walmart employees are on food stamps. It's like, why? Why do
Yeah,
we,
right.
I
It sounds
like,
like you're not good at running a company if you have all these employees that you can't pay them a livable
right.
wage. Like maybe you shouldn't be in operation. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Hey, I Costco actually does the opposite where they pay people a living wage and make sure they've got
Yeah,
good health coverage and everything, and investment plans and whatnot. And they're doing great. Be more like
yeah.
Costco.
I like Costco's thing where like what was it, the CEO, they were like trying to get him to raise the prices on the hot dogs or whatever from $1.50. He's like,
Right.
if you raise the prices of those hot dogs, I will fucking kill you.
Right.
It's like
Right.
that's the I don't know. It's just like all of our, and this is kind of sad too. It's like all of our values are warped because, back in the 50s and 60s, it's like everybody that wanted to make a great living and start a company, it's like they started some kind of manufacturing plant that employed like, hundreds of people in the town or whatever. But nowadays, everyone that wants to get rich quick and make a great life for themselves, they all go into finance to make money off of money. And it's just like that, like a
Right.
complete lopsided change of like what we value in society of making a living. It's
Or
like
worse, they decide
I
that
want to
they're
make a
going to
ton of
be
money and not give any of it away to anybody in my community.
right.
It's such a
Or they
warped
decide
thing.
that they're going to be influencers or, like Twitch game streamers or something, like
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think we've talked enough. My phone's about to die. I'm at like 8%. But any last thoughts anything you
oh my
want to
God.
shamelessly plug for yourself
No, this
before we
was
leave?
super fun. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and I love it. Are you so? Is this like a series that you're gonna do, or
Yeah, just do more conversations and podcasts. I call it brain milk with 2% fat.
nice,
So it's just
nice?
a kind of a liberal discussions on mostly politics, a little bit of culture and stuff
Yeah,
too eventually, but
I got it wrong. I put it in my calendar as brain juice. I was like, it's brain something.
brain
It's
juice. That's
brain
funny too.
fluid of some
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah, brain fluid. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of want to do just more interviews. I got a goal to interview maybe like 30 new people this year or something like that, and just try to make it more of a recurring thing. I
Right?
do a lot with Adrian Polk, and so we've been doing a lot of podcasts together on politics. So it's just
Yeah.
something I want to expand
Oh, did
and
you hit your goal? You had a goal for the new year.
I actually hit quite a few of my goals. My goal for 2025 was to get to 100 paid subscribers. I started the year at 7 and I ended up with 540. So I grew like way faster than I
Nice.
kind of thought was possible. So I'm trying to grow that. Maybe my goal this year is like 1,200 if I can do a little bit better
Yeah.
than I did last year. So
Yeah. If you're
uh,
not a subscriber to Dash and the Halfway Cafe, you should be. His shit is hilariously funny and honestly, man, you consistently strike the tone where I read your stuff and I'm like, I honestly don't know if this one is satire or not.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know, like I publish on Twitter and threads as the halfway post. So I've been doing that for like 8 years. So like, when I have a free day, I'll try to post like 8 jokes. And then some of those, like I'll compile those jokes on Substack and then write like straight comedy, satirical news articles like The Onion. And they say write what you want to read, and that's definitely what I do. So kind of
Nice.
going off of the Trump diet, the McDonald's food we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The article I posted yesterday was pretty graphic about Trump's sex tape involving not women but McDonald's food. If you want to check that out, it's like I said, I write what I want to read. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's probably all true.
probably more true than we would be comfortable knowing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking to me,
Absolutely.
and
Thank you
thanks
for
for
the invite.
listening, everybody. And anything you want to plug real quick for yourself before we leave while we got
I'm
people
good.
listening? You're good? All right, cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Catch
Thanks.
you in the next Brain Mail. See you,
Bye.
everybody.